So hit play virtual machine. And if we click in here, when you first start using the VM, it's going to be a little kind of buggy with the mouse. There's some tools that we'll install here in a minute that cleans it up a little bit. But these first few times it's going to be not quite as nice. If you need to get out of the virtual machine, you hit Control and Alt at the same time, and that will free up your mouse. So I have clicked inside of the virtual machine, and we'll use the graphical mode. So go ahead and hit Enter. And now the virtual machine is starting up, and it's seen the bootable DVD, and now it's going in to load the operating system. Because this is just a sandbox for just playing around, we won't actually test the media before we install it, so we'll hit skip. And you use your arrow keys on your keyboard to navigate between those. And this should start up and pop up a GUI here in a minute. I'll go ahead and pause the video. Oh, looks like I won't need to pause it. And here's our installation screens for CentOS. So go ahead and hit Next. And for me, I'll be using English and US English. And it's saying that the disk that we've created is unreadable, so it's going to need to format the disk. We're pretty much just going to choose all the defaults, remove any Linux partition it finds on the disk, but we're in a virtual machine, so it's not that there is nothing there. And we'll review and modify the partitioning layout just so I can show that. We'll say yes to this. Show that it's actually putting everything just at the root of the all the disk space is at the root. We do have a little space for a little small partition for swap. Hit next. And we'll just keep all of the defaults here. And here is where, if you wanted to manually set up so the networking for the machine, you could set up manually to assign it an IP address. I'm going to go ahead and leave it so it gets an IP address via DHCP. And it's got me America, New York. That's good enough for right now, so I don't have to search through the drop down. This is going to be the root password, or the root user password. So go ahead and enter a password in. Next. And here, down here at the very bottom of the virtual machine, you can see it's prompting me to install the VMware tools. We'll be doing that in a minute once we actually have CentOS installed on the virtual machine, and it makes it easier to work with the virtual machine. Okay, we'll keep desktop at GNOME, and then we also want to select server and GUI, and that's good enough for this screen. I believe that might be the last one where it's going to start installing. Click Next to begin the installation. Yes, so once we click Next here, it is now actually installing CentOS on the virtual machine. So at this point, I'm going to pause the video or pause the recording while it actually installs, because this can take several minutes, as the dialog box is telling us right now. Alright, so the installation has completed, and it's now asking us to reboot. So let's just go ahead and click the reboot button. Oops, reboot. And again, this will take a couple minutes, so I will again pause the video and I'll be right back. So the reboot has finished, and now we have some final configuration settings to make before we actually get into CentOS. And a lot of these are going to be security settings, and with the security, because again, this is just a sandbox, not something that we're going to put into production, I'm going to go ahead and just pretty much turn everything off. So we'll click forward. The first one is a firewall. Just disable it. And yes, we're sure we know what we're doing. Next one, SELinux. It's another security feature built into Linux, and we're going to go ahead and just disable it so it doesn't give us any problems that we don't need, as being this a sandbox type environment or just a playground. And yes, we're fine with that. Kdump, we'll leave that off. Date and time's close enough. And we need to create a user. This will be the user that you actually log into CentOS with. I'm almost positive that the root user is disabled, that you can't log in with the root user. It could be wrong, but anyways, we'll just create a user here. And the next setting, sound card, we really don't care about. And finally, additional CDs, we're not going to worry about any of that. And again, we have to reboot. So while the system reboots, I will again pause the video. Alright, so the system has finished rebooting, and are presented with the login screen for CentOS to get into the operating system. So go ahead and log in with the user that we created in that last step. And we will be presented with the CentOS desktop. Now, one of the first things we want to do is install the VMware tools, like it's showing down here at the bottom of the screen. It just makes it a lot easier to work with the virtual machine. So to get my mouse is captive right now, so to get out, you click Control and Alt at the same time. And let's click on Install Tools. We'll come back here and do these updates just in a minute. So let me close out of those. I'm just going to drag that off because it's mounting it like it's a CD-ROM, and just copying them over to the desktop. So when I drag it over, the permissions on this are such that I'm not allowed to see them. Actually, that doesn't matter too much. We'll just open up a terminal, and we'll switch over to the root user, so su space dash, and the root password. And now we're the root user, and let's move over to my Sean desktop. So change directory, home, and I'm just going to open up the permissions on that gzip file so we can unpack it just using the GUI. So chmod 777 VMWare star, and that should change the permissions on this file so that now I can use it, access it with my my Sean user. There we go. And so now I can extract here. And the GZ file, it's just like a zip. So it's a compressed file. And if we read down here the instructions down at the very bottom of the screen, it says that we want to execute vmware-install.pl. And again, we're going to want to do that as the root user, and since we already have root here in this terminal window, let's now change directories to VMware star. And we can see the vmware-install.pl right there. So you do /vmware-install.pl, and this should install the VMware tools for us. We're going to be presented with a bunch of questions here. I'll just take all the defaults. So you just hit enter to accept what it's proposing. And if I remember correctly, it's going to think for a second, and then it's going to ask us for some more paths and stuff. So yeah, so yes, we want to create it. Yes, and there, looks like where it's kicking off the install of the VMware tools. This should go pretty quick. And then on this screen, it's asking what resolution we want the virtual machine to come up in. I have a huge monitor, so I could go 1680 by 1050, but because of the recording, then I'll get a bunch of scroll bars. So I'll just go, let's do 14, which is what, 1280 by 768. So it's still decent size, but at least it won't be so enormous that it doesn't fit into the area that I'm recording. Alright, so VMware tools are currently installing, and if I remember correctly, this should be pretty quick, and it's done. It doesn't really take effect, I don't think, until I would need to reboot this system. We're going to do a couple other things first, so we'll do some other Linux housekeeping, and then we'll reboot. One of the first things we need to do is the trial version of Portal is going to check a license file, and when it does that, it references a C library that isn't installed. So we'll need to do that. To do that, we'll just go to this add remove software and search, and the package that we're going to look for is compat lib standard C++. Let's get this on the screen. Oops, it's can't cut and paste it. Compat dash lib std C++. And we want this one with the 33, the compatibility standard C++ libraries. Select that and hit apply. And so it says we're going to be installing that package. So go ahead and hit continue. And just go ahead and say import key. Alright, so we've successfully updated that.